My next guest is a journalist who has written a new book about the experience of teenagers in America, specifically for transgender teens. Nico Lang is the author of American Teenager: How Trans Kids Are Surviving Hate and Finding Joy in a Turbulent Era. Nico is speaking at the Elliott Bay Book Company tonight, but first we have them on our couch with us this morning. Welcome to New Day.
Yeah, thank you. It's so great to be here.
Yes, so great to have you. So how did you get started working on this project and book?
Sure. Around, like 2021, it was like early-ish pandemic era. Like time is kind of a flat circle right now, so it's like
Totally get it.
Could have been any time. But a mom in Texas called me because they had recently introduced a bill there that would classify parents of trans kids as being child abusers if they allow their kids to transition, and that's either to medically transition or socially transition. So really, what that means is that if you affirm your kid as trans at all, you could be jailed for that. And she was panicking, she was freaking out because she didn't know what was going to happen to her family. And listening to her on the phone, I realized that I'd always kind of operated under like a good faith assumption here, that if we have like differences of opinion on like trans kids, or like there are like different, I don't know, there's sort of like, there's an information gap among like some people, right? That as a journalist, I can fix that by giving them better information, right?
Right.
I can instill good faith.
Educate, right.
Exactly. But it's like, if you're coming from that place of like parents of trans kids abuse their kids, right? Like there's no good faith there. So this book for me was about instilling good faith in the discussion, to like recognize that these kids are just kids. They're just humans who deserve like humanity and dignity just like everyone else.
Wow, so important. And how important do you think this book is now with our current political climate?
Oh God, unfortunately, it couldn't be more important. I was really hoping that this book would be like effectively obsolete, that, we would make the right decision in the election and that, everything would be better. But unfortunately, I think it shows like how much we still have to fight for, how much education still needs to be done. Like there are so many people who have, questions about trans kids, which is understandable. There's, education work there, but then they use that like lack of knowledge to like take away people's rights, and that's not okay. So I think for me, it's like, I look at this book as being a start, that there need to be like thousands more books like it that are published. And I hope, that this leads to that. It's just the beginning.
And do you think this book will give our readers and viewers a good sense of what certain families are facing right now?
I hope so. I think it does a good job of illustrating the breadth of what's happening and just the diversity of experiences that you have. You have parents and kids that live in more progressive states like Washington, but then you have parents and kids in places like Alabama that are really struggling. So I think it shows the experiences of people who aren't like you and don't have your same privileges. That there are some people who are still fighting for the rights that other people get to take for granted. And it's really important that we know what's going on and like what they're facing.
And I want to talk about that. Like, who did you speak to and their experiences in this book?
Sure. So I traveled to 7 different states across the country. We'll see if I can do them in order.
Wow.
Yeah, it was busy. It was South Dakota, Alabama, drop me a beat, just kidding.
Yeah, I can't help you with that.
No, West Virginia, Texas, Illinois, Florida, and California. And my goal with that was to really like have as much of a diversity of states as possible, to have as much of a diversity of families as possible. Because in addition to geographical diversity, there are so many different kinds of families, like racial backgrounds, religious backgrounds, economic backgrounds. Some of the families are very well off, others are quite poor and really struggling. And you can understand then like what those struggles are, because it gives you an appreciation that if you have to deal with like your own politicians discriminating against you on top of that, that's really overwhelming. And we're doing this to like children across the US, and it just really needs to stop.
Wow. And do you think this book tackles some misconceptions about the trans and non-binary communities at all?
Yeah, I think it just speaks to like this, like, as I said before, this fear that people have, this like, I don't know, weird like reactionary fear. And when you read about these kids in their actual lives, you can see how unfounded this stuff is. You can see that their parents are just parents who are trying their best. You can see that these kids are just kids who are trying their best, right? Trying to like figure out who they want to be in this world, trying to grow up well, to have a nice childhood. And they deserve that, just the way that all of us deserve that. We all deserve to be like treated like humans. And for some reason right now in American society, we've decided that some people don't get that.
Wow. And overall, what do you hope is the takeaway when people read this book and how they leave, feeling or, what, I guess, information that they gather and understanding?
Sure, that's a great question. Thank you for asking it.
Of course.
I think for me, I want them to ask what they can do, because so many of these kids, their entire lives have been fighting, that from the moment they come out, they have to be these incredible activists, that they're like fighting on the front lines, they're like educating their lawmakers, they're educating their families, they're like, their school teachers,
yeah.
their whole communities, right? There's just so much work they're doing all the time, and they always have to be perfect. And it's so exhausting, like you can see how exhausted they are, because they don't want to do this, they just want to be kids. And I think it's time for the adults in their lives and then adult allies to step up and create a better world for them. Because right now we're not there. We see about how much work we have to do, and we need to start doing it. We can't put it all on these kids. It's got to be other people who step up and take up the fight.
Well, I look forward to people talking more about this book and reading it. Thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes. And just a reminder, Nico is speaking at the Elliott Bay Book Company tonight, Wednesday the 13th at 7 p.m.